Regular meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District to order at 6:08. Today is 19 December 2018. We have 8 directors present representing 7.5 votes. And tonight we're meeting at St. Albans City School. First order on the agenda is the agenda review. Are there any changes need to be made to the agenda? Okay, then I look for a motion to approve the agenda as is. Thank you, Al.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Steve. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Approved 7.5 to 0. I'd ask everyone to please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everybody, and welcome to our annual Ugly Sweater Board meeting. I think Sean and I are the only ones that got the memo.
I didn't get the memo.
We didn't get the memo.
Or maybe we did.
Sean would take that every day.
So we'll move right down the agenda. We'll start with visitors. Are there any visitors here tonight that would like to address the boards? Going once, going twice. Move right to the host site presentation then. I will turn this over to Principal Cavallo.
Okay, so last time you were here, we presented something called internal internships, and we've been continuing with internal internships. And it's sort of been our way to really introduce flexible pathways in a very authentic way within our school. So tonight I have 2 students who have been doing an internship. And what we've defined as our internal internship is where the school has a need and students have the skill. And we pair those 2 things together. And instead of doing something, the students do a project that meets the expectation of the something they would have been doing if they were in class. The 2 students you're going to meet tonight, Jack and Jackson, are both really good at language arts. So reading and writing is not at all a problem for them and can become boring in a regular classroom. So that was the challenge. Is that fair? And I saw this documentary over the summer done by college kids. And I thought it was the really coolest thing in the world, and thought it would be really cool for our 50th anniversary for us to go back in time and do a documentary about the building of our school. So I asked them if they were willing to trade language arts class to come up with a documentary.
They fought you through tooth and nail.
Not at all. And so I don't think they realized how hard it was going to be, but tonight they're going to share with you a little bit of what their process has been like. The documentary isn't done yet. It will be done for Unified Arts Night. This is going to be kind of like a little teaser to get people interested, and hopefully you'll come see the actual documentary that'll be presented in February. So without further ado, this is Jack Spar and Jackson Hayes with Mr. Craig. So the other thing about an internship is you have to have an adult in the school who's willing to facilitate it. So Mitch Craig this is one of his passions, is doing videos like this, and so he's been the adult champion for the students.
Do we need the lights down for this? Or?
Guys, can you introduce yourself so they know who's who?
I'm Jack.
I'm Jackson Hayes.
Let me quickly turn down the lights a little bit more.
Jason just went to do it for you, Mitch.
Okay.
Okay, so we were tasked with making a documentary about the beginning of the school. We meet every school day for an hour in the morning, and yeah, I think we've been having a lot of success with it.
So, as Ms. Cavallo touched on, didn't touch on, but explained, me and Jackson weren't feeling challenged in LA class, so instead of doing that, we do this internship, still testing our language arts abilities and helping the school with this project, as they already wanted to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the construction of the school.
When we first started the project, we really didn't have any idea about what the whole story of the school was. So we were lucky enough to be able to use an account on a genealogy website so we could look back at old Messenger articles and find out what was going on around that time and all that stuff. We used keywords to like narrow down our search. And
So we got involved with the Historical Society when Alex Lenning from the museum came down and met with us, and the UA teachers who have also been tasked with helping celebrate the 50th anniversary of the school. And using the museum, we went there and dug through their files looking for pictures to use in the documentary. And we didn't find many on our school, but we found plenty of classic pictures like this one on the neighborhood schools like, Messenger Street School and whatnot. They also helped us reach out into the community using the messenger, asking if anybody had any photos or anything to add to the documentary. We didn't get anything from that, but it's still nice. They also offered us a $500 grant to help fund the project if we need any software, advertising, or anything.
we've conducted over a dozen interviews. Everyone from like students who transitioned from the street schools to this school to the architect of the school itself. And this interviews are going to be like the body of the documentary, and it's going to make up most of it. Next, we're going to show you a few clips from the interviews that we think are good.
So this is John Doerr, the one of the duo of architects. Him and Roland Whittier, Dorn Whittier, helped design the school. He's the one that did the fine details of all the blueprints. So, there you go.
Each video clip that we'll see is about a minute long, sometimes shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. Let's try another one to see if it comes out any better. Yeah, this is a bit of an epic fail.
Working progress.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'd be working fine if we weren't sitting here.
We need to be sitting over there, right?
Are you pumped all the way up?
We are on this.
Let me go over to this one so we can actually see it. Yeah, you're not pumped all the way up on this. You have it going?
Let me try raising it on this side over here.
Why don't we have it going so I can act this in here?
Could you start?
You have to just hit the arrow.
Maybe we could just tell them about it.
Why don't you do that? It seems like the music is drowning out your people.
It wasn't
Yeah.
when we watched it in any other setting. Okay, so maybe you could explain the Pride one and then go to the Canadian one, etc.
So in this clip, he talked about like how he was really proud of how the school turned out and how if he actually comes by the school, he still thinks it is a really good building.
And here he talks about how IBM had just started, so a lot of general contractors, or all general contractors around here were taken, so they couldn't find the manpower to help the project or anything. So they had to go and find a Canadian general contractor to help build the building.
That one is like this sort of funny story. This sort of funny story about like up at the top of the building there were these precast, or still are there were these precast concrete
canopies.
That and when he went over, there were like little fish bones stuck in the concrete, and it was because when the people that were at the firm that made the concrete things, concrete canopies, people were like throwing these fish tails into them after they ate them.
There's a bunch of Portuguese, Canadian contractors. All right. There we go. This one we can actually hear. Actually, I have a feeling Dan speaks very loud.
Like I said, there was quite a definition. You lived above the tracks or below the tracks. So when putting this school together, it was a melting pot for all the kids from Holy Angels, St. Mary's, Fairfield Street, Messenger Street. All the schools came together into one building. So that was quite an adjustment at the time. The infusion of that and the people responsible for organizing that, I think this community should be forever thankful. There was a sense of pride in coming to school here, and you know, it still prevails today.
So we could give it a try and see if it works. If not, you guys can explain. All right? Yeah, I think we better explain. All right.
I can do this one.
Okay. So in this clip, he goes over the different offerings that the industrial arts program had, like wood shop, metalworks, power engineering, I think, like motors, drafting, graphic design, whole bunch of stuff, and just like how built out the program was and how supportive the principal or superintendent at the time was, how supportive he was of the program.
And then here he talks about how in his power mechanics class, he would have a project that students could volunteer for that apparently mostly girls volunteered for, where they would, he would get a lawnmower and then they would
I think it was only lawnmower music.
Every year they did a lawnmower.
Yeah, every year they would take a lawnmower in pieces and build a lawnmower throughout the year, and then on the last day of school they would go outside and they would start the lawnmower up, and yeah.
All right. Maybe we should explain this one as well.
Okay, so this is Kathy Montague. She came to this school when she was in 5th grade, and before that she went to St. Mary's, and in this clip she just talks about the transition between St. Mary's and this school, and her experience at this school.
There was one other aspect of this particular clip that was interesting. She talked about the fact that the little schools were very separate from each other, that you could be at St. Mary's and Fairfield, which were on the same street, but the two bodies of students never interacted with each other. They were kind of competitive. So when people ended up coming to this school, all those people got clumped together, and it really changed the attitude of people in St. Albans about who we were.
So once we finished doing some research and doing some interviews, we established the outline of how we want to set the documentary up. We'd start with why there needed to be a new school and how the old schools were falling apart and were inadequate at the time. Then how we got this school, and then talking about the first year of the school and the classes that were taught here back then.
When we first started editing, we were using a platform called WeVideo. The reason we were using it is because the school had previously bought it, and it is good for smaller projects. But we soon learned that it really wasn't good for like the amount of media and video that we needed to have for this project. So we kind of knew that we needed to use different software. So we ended up coming across Final Cut Pro because some people that work here had previous experience with it, and they suggested it, and it's been working out really well. Recently, me and Jack have been working on going through the interviews and taking out interesting parts of the interviews that would be used in the documentary and sorting them into different categories so that they're easier to access when we're actually making it.
So, looking towards the future, we are done conducting interviews, but we still need to finish editing like the last one or two. And after that, we need to just write narration for the parts that the interviews don't cover, narrate the narration, add pictures, and just edit the whole documentary together and present it.
All right. So this might be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions of the two. They've done a lot of learning, and there's a lot more that they could tell you than what they just said.
What grades are you guys in?
Both 8th grade.
Looks like you have a lot of good material.
What surprised you the most about what you learned? Or what was the most interesting?
I think
For me,
it'd be how this school really helped unify St. Albans. How it was really divided by what street school you went to, and now it's you're St. Albans. You're not Messenger Street.
What about you, Jackson?
I was going to say the same thing.
Are you still looking for more research material, by chance, or that part's done? And the other reason I mentioned is the messenger is on microfilm at the library, dating back to like 1880. If you had certain dates in mind, you could pull that up and copy from there too, if you were with that made sense.
Do you want to speak about what we got in the genealogy site?
Yeah, it was pretty comprehensive. Like we got all the information so that we could really get together a pretty exhaustive timeline of what happened.
It was all on the messenger. Right?
Yeah, and it was all
okay.
on the messenger
was,
on the genealogy website.
Very good.
Yeah.
But the one piece we're still struggling with is pictures, right? Because we don't have any good.
Yeah.
We definitely need a lot more pictures if we're to fill in.
Do you have class pictures? What's up with class pictures? Like
Yeah,
the first
there are
year.
definitely some.
I'm gonna find some of those, but we were looking more for like pictures of what, like, I guess now we take so many pictures, but were there any pictures taken in that time? And even the ones in the messenger, the quality is so poor that it's hard for us to use those as part of the documentary. So that's been the hard part.
The messenger did do a wonderful spread at the very beginning of the school, showcasing all the different programs, the industrial arts, the homemaking program, the science classrooms, and just the general facilities. Because I think the city was incredibly proud of having built this place. This was a major investment at the time, and it still is. What did we learn in terms of how much the building cost to make back then, and then what it would cost now?
It cost like I think it was like 7 million.
No. That cost $3 million back then to build the school, but
and then if we were to build it now with higher labor costs and like higher costs of masonry, I think the architect said it would cost around $52 million to build today.
I remember that I moved here in 1966, and I was told that it was the largest elementary school in the state.
Oh yeah, it was
at the time.
I think one of if not the best. It was really modern, really introduced a lot of new ideas. I know the architect talked a lot about having the library here so that classrooms could walk in and take books and bring them back into the classroom. And,
Do we know how many students came here at the beginning?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Also, when this school opened, all the parochial Catholic schools shut down. So all
No, that's not quite
They didn't shut
accurate.
down
not
until
all of them.
68.
Okay, but a good amount of them shut down.
70s when we started.
Oh, I thought he said
Holy
60.
Angels, I believe, hung
No,
on for a little longer.
50 now, but 50
Yes.
Some of them
Yes.
shut down even before the 50th anniversary. So yeah, that's true, I apologize, you're right.
Yeah,
Math
yeah.
Public's
The
a
first
big-
year was actually 1970. 68 was when the building started. Yeah, it was like, I think it was like 900 students.
No, it was 1,200 students to
1,200?
begin with. And I think there was an influx of even more than that from the last Catholic school to close. So, did you have something to say, Joanne?
Wait, no, I went to Central Catholic from Holy Angels, and the other part of this melting pot was then when Central Catholic closed
Right.
in 1968, 69. The other part of the melting pot was everyone then filtered into BFA. So from this school and then from Central Catholic.
So I have a question.
Dating myself huge.
So when you did the research, did you get any information about how this school was different from the smaller schools? What else did it offer?
I know it offered a lot more physical education, gym and whatnot, because back then you'd go outside and the little schools, or as Frank Spendley talked about, in the little schools, most you do education is, or for physical education, you'd stand up, open the window, and do breathing exercises, maybe throw your hands up once or twice.
Is that what we do now?
I don't know if
So physical education was a main difference, but what about the way people taught and anything in the research on that?
about the science.
I know they added there's science now, and there's home ec, and then shop. Those are big and good classes, well taught. But we don't know specifically how they taught it.
Well, one of the things that was interesting was that IBM had just really kind of established itself. And I've heard that St. Albans was struggling economically at the time. The schools were not necessarily preparing students for the future. And this school had a big science program established with the hopes that kids could go on and work in places like IBM. So it was always a forward-thinking process in developing the school.
Mitch, can you talk a little bit about, because you told me about the railroad and the impact and why busing was such a critical thing and
Right.
how they used.
Well, it was a tough sell to get this place because it was so expensive. I think there was a bond for like $2.5 million that had to be passed, and that was like pulling teeth. And had to make promises about what a wonderful place it was going to be with all these new programs that were not present at the other schools. And there was serious concern about how kids would get here because I wasn't here at the time, but there were more railroad crossings, more railroads right on Lake Street than there are now. And there was a real fear that kids could be hurt, and I think a legitimate one. So there was a promise that you would get busing, that come here and do that. And we were told that not long into the school's life, the expense of busing was high then too, and that there was some thought about maybe removing it, and there were death threats against people on the board for considering that option. So basically, busing remains.
Much tougher job, I guess.
Did you conduct interviews with some of the other people who were pictured, like Teresa Manahan, for example? So those will be part of the finished project.
Yep, no, definitely.
So how did you decide who you were going to interview, and
Who did you interview?
I believe we have.
There was everyone.
Interesting to see.
So some of the, do you want me to speak, or you guys should really have the opportunity here, it's your show. How did we pick Deb Bushy, or Gleason, or Kathy Montaigne, or so?
If we knew they went to the neighborhood schools or just had anything to add, maybe.
It's kind of word of mouth. A number of these people work here, so it's kind of interesting. They were students way back when, they went to the little schools, they've stayed in the community, they are teachers here, or they work at town school, they work at BFA. And then we were really lucky to find a few older people who, you know, were committed as teachers way back when, or board members, or parents. And so we realized that there are far more people than we interviewed who could be a part of this particular video. And I think there's a good opportunity, if we manage to make one that we can actually listen to, that we make part 2. So this one is just like how the school got built, you know, why it was here, and the next part could be, you know, what it was like in the early years on up to today, maybe. So.
What was here? Was this farmland?
This was a farmland piece, yep. I can't remember how much it went for, something like $30,000. Picking property was kind of a challenge. Do you remember what
there were
we
so
learned
many
there?
sites considered. Like,
I think there was like more than 10 sites that they considered at one time. Yeah.
One of the primary ones was on the top of Congress Street, where the governor's mansion was.
Still fun.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Governor's
the school
mansion.
being there? Or over at Barlow Street Community Center? Where would it fit? Right.
So when the small schools consolidated, do they all have their own school boards? Did those all consolidate too? Do we know how that?
I believe they did. We have a picture of the board. It seemed to be only 5 people. So I don't know how it condensed down to that. Maybe one from each of the street schools or something like that.
Right. So the political structure would be interested as you do part 2.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Another thing that was interesting was the superintendent and 2 principals in the same building here. How does that work? Lots of history.
2 principals?
There was an upstairs principal and a downstairs kind of area principal.
And the superintendent was upstairs, where
Right,
Joan's office
in
is
Joan's
now.
office, right.
Who was that, Dean?
Corey was there. Mr. Dewey?
Dewey, yes.
Sid Dewey was
Sydney
there.
Dewey.
Mr. Walsh was here. I don't know who's upstairs.
I think you should have been.
So obviously, we just scratched the surface of what's there. And I appreciate your understanding of the
Yeah,
video.
it's
Very, very
cool.
good idea.
This is
So happy
great.
to share.
Can you get to your last slide where you invite everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to come.
Okay.
Says 9
Nice.
We're anticipating this being about 20 to 30 minutes long when it's finished.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thanks very much.
Good job.
Thanks, guys. Okay, we'll push forward then to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. We have approval of the minutes from 5 December, and we have some staff retirement resignations to be accepted. Is there any reason to pull one of these items off the consent agenda to take separately or discuss? If not, if there's no objections, we will go ahead and approve the consent agenda. Are there any objections? Seeing none, consent agenda is approved. Brings us to old business. 7A is the budget discussion, attachment 7A.
Did you want to start? Did you want to start?
No.
Okay. So what you have attached is a budget packet. This is my typical presentation style of the budget. The top sheet is an overview of the budget information that's attached behind. This being the first draft being presented to the school board, it's at $57,062,798. which that currently reflects a 4.65% increase in budget over budget, expenditure budget over expenditure budget. We don't have our equalized pupil count from the state yet. They're working on it. The state is actually working on a new collection process, and it isn't going as smoothly as they would like. And so the equalized pupil counts might be a couple of weeks later than normal, so hopefully by January we'll have some numbers there. That is the number that we need to come up with our education spending per equalized pupil. So what you've got in front of you, I've just used the same number. We are anticipating that that number is going to be higher than the FY19 budget, which...
That number, equalized pupil?
The equalized pupil count, yes.
Which is good.
So that's good.
That's good.
That's good. That's a very good thing. So right now, with what we've got here in front of us, we're predicting a education spending increase of 2.81%. That's the number that the state looks at and uses for all their statewide calculations, is the education spending.
And it's a good way to look at it.
Yes.
Because if you have more kids.
Right. More
might have
kids.
more time.
Also, in this particular budget, there was a shift in how we were asked to report some of our expenses versus revenues from FY19, and I just wanted to point that out. The tech center, the school district provides the tech center some services, and in the past, those services were always shown as a net of expense, so they would it would be a credit in the expense lines for the high school. They've asked us to not show it that way, to actually show it as a revenue source. So the FY19 budget actually has about $500,000 in expense reflected, whereas in our FY20 budget, that's not. In the FY19 budget, $500,000 was reduced out of the expenses. In the FY20 budget, that's not reduced out of the expenses, it's shown as a revenue.
Yeah.
So when you do those kinds of adjustments, that's why you want to look at your education spending, because it's the net. It's your expense less your revenues. And so right now we're looking at a 2.8.
And that's independent of student count?
That's independent of student count. It's when you get to the spending per equalized pupil that comes into play. And that's what is used to set your tax rate.
Right. So what gets put on the ballot?
What gets put on the ballot is the expense budget. So it would be the $57 million figure.
But when they tell you how much...
Then you put your per pupil spending amount. So
it's 15,000, whatever.
Right. And then the percent increase of your per pupil spending increase.
So it's not that 2.8%.
Well, right now it's looking 2.8, but that's because we don't have the correct per pupil count in there. It will be
right.
It will be less than that.
But you just told me that 2.8 is independent of the student.
Depending on which 2.8 you're looking at. I'm sorry, I've got two of them on that top sheet.
Okay, they're both 2.8?
Right now, because I'm using the same student count.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so once that student count changes, if it goes up, that per pupil spending is going to go down. The percentage will go down.
And that's the piece that's on the ballot?
Yes, yes. Along with the expense budget total.
Yeah, the expense budget starts it, and the per pupil information ends it.
I just brought myself just a copy of what the
Are we at risk of having to approve this budget before we know what the equalized student count is?
Possibly. We have to adopt this budget by January, our second January board meeting. The 16th, or, yeah, I think that's the date. But I think the state is going to work towards freezing the numbers that they have early in January, and that's what everybody will use. And it's a 2-year average, so the following year it will get adjusted, but they will be freezing it at some point early in January, and we'll have those numbers. So besides that, the second little box just kind of gives you some breakdown information as comparing one year to the next.
What page are you on?
I'm still on the cover sheet,
Middle.
still on that first cover sheet page.
Okay.
I just broke down in different categories: salaries, employee benefits, contracted services, tuition, supplies, and other costs, just to compare year over year. In our FY20 budget, we are currently showing a reduction of approximately 10 FTEs, that's full-time equivalents of staff members. So that was all through attrition. There was no RIFs, no forced retirements. It was all through attrition where staff members left and or retired, and we either didn't fill a position or we filled parts of the position. There was quite a lot of movement from that budget.
And looking at FY19, it seems like that offset the salary increases.
Yes, yeah.
But I also will chime in on this one. Well, because many of us had PTSD over last year's budget. What I asked was that we not look yet about doing what we need to do with certain staffing. So there were a couple cases where we cut staff, but we didn't replace in certain places, because I wanted to see what the final budget was going to look like. And if we had another 17-cent increase, we'd have to deal with that. So there might now be some changes as we move here and as we see what the final equalized pupil is. Because you won't see this yet, but we're looking also, Martha hasn't got to this point yet, but we're looking at a 0% tax increase. So that's a little different than the 17-cent some of our towns saw last year. So I just want to be upfront about that.
Right.
That we did the cuts, and we were able to bring down almost $900,000 in staffing cuts.
Right.
But now we have to look at it a bit.
Because there are some initiatives that we really do want to look at and put in place that would hopefully help offset some of the other costs that we're seeing huge percentage increases in under, contracted services and under the tuition and stuff. Those areas really are related to special ed services. And so it's one of the areas we're looking at, maybe doing things differently. But again, that's something we haven't finished fleshing out because we needed to go through this process first to see where we're going to land.
Right, so if you're doing things more efficiently by hiring people, then we would expect to see a reduction somewhere else, right?
Over time. Not saying, it would be immediate, but that's the process.
Say that again.
Well, she said they're looking at hiring people to do some of the things we do more efficiently, like contracts.
So it might replace contracted services.
So I'm saying if that's the case, then if we were to increase our budget for salaries,
Then
we
you
should
should
see a
have to go down.
reduction
See
somewhere
another
else.
expense line going down. It did seem like the special ed area was where most of the increases were.
So that's
That's all
the
Joanne's
cover sheet.
Right.
Sure. The next 2 pages of the packet of information are the expenditure budget by function codes. And I've given you FY18 actual expenses, the FY19 adopted budget, the FY19 working budget, and our proposed budget. So basically you would be comparing the FY19 adopted budget to the proposed budget when you're comparing budget to budget. And again, there's that $500,000 of negative expenses that were in FY19 that are not in FY20. So some areas that look like they had a huge jump, it's basically because that credit is no longer in the FY20 budget. So the regular education programming we're showing right now with about a little little over a 2.7% increase. That includes salaries, benefits, discretionary funding, that's all the classroom supplies. It includes operation and maintenance. The second page at the top is our special education costs. And I don't need to explain, you can see where those costs are. Under the direct instruction line, that's where the contracted services fall, and so don't the tuition payments for outside placement. That all falls in that one line item.
And do we have revenue that offsets some of this?
Yes, we do, at the beginning there. And the tech center is actually a decrease in the budget at this point in time.
Do you have a placeholder number in here for a BFA bond?
No, because that wouldn't be hitting this budget.
So 2 years.
It wouldn't be hitting for another 2 years. Right, the vote would be on the warning, but it wouldn't be affecting this budget. Then the next page is the summary of revenues. The box that I have highlighted is the education spending figure. That's the same figure that was on the front page on that. Basically, that's the net. You take your expenses, you subtract out all the other revenues on this page, and the balance is what you plug in that area. That's your education spending. Yes, our special ed expenditures are showing an increase of about 12.6% increase, but our revenue side on the special education is showing a 17.86% increase as well. So there's a correlation right now with special education. With spending, it's a reimbursement formula. So basically, if you spend more, you get reimbursed more. That funding formula is going to be changing over the next couple of years, but it's still the process for this budget.
What was the preschool grant that went away? Was that from the state?
Yeah, it was a federal grant. It's the preschool development grant. It's right in the middle of the regular education. It was the current year, the grant is $1 million. We aren't anticipating spending all of that $1 million. We're anticipating spending about $400,000 of it, $500,000 of it. But that's going away next year. And that's reflected in this budget. Currently, we are proposing to continue the programming that we are doing with the early childhood program that we are funding with the preschool development grant. So this budget does continue the programming for that.
How are you funding it when the preschool development grant goes away?
Pardon?
Half of the money will be left over and the other half will just be in the budget.
Because we're only spending half of this year, so you can roll that money over into next year?
No, the grant goes away. It just goes away.
So how did you say you're going to continue the services?
We're going to continue the programming, which are reflected in our expense side budget, our expense budget. On the revenue side, we're showing zero for revenue. And the final page, because the state is, like I said, not where they usually are about this time of the year. They haven't given us the tax sheet that I usually prepare for you that shows you the prior year tax calculation and then the current, the proposed tax calculation. So I put it together on a spreadsheet. The yellow boxes are the areas where those numbers are going to change. I haven't gotten final numbers, so I'm using last year's numbers. I do anticipate, knock on wood, that the equalized pupil count will go up, which will then bring your tax rate down. And I don't have the common level of appraisal yet for how the tax rate gets adjusted per municipality.
So the numbers from last year are the equalized pupil count and CLA?
Correct.
Anything else?
That's the only things I'm missing for the tax calculation.
The yield is fixed.
The yield, well, the yield has been announced by the commissioner of the tax commissioner. The legislature is the one that actually sets it, and they don't do that until all the budgets have passed and all the budgets have been submitted to the state, and then they do their calculation. So we use the information that has been announced, and the yield was announced to go up from 10,200 and something dollars to $10,666, which helps bring the tax rate down.
So we have two numbers from last year.
Mm-hmm.
One we expect to be in our favor.
Yep.
The other one probably not.
The other one, I really have no idea where the CLA is going to land.
It'll probably go up, I mean.
We haven't been appraised, so.
Right.
So it's gonna get worse.
Depends on what the property
wondering
values
how
have
it
been selling
washes
for
out.
in the area, so.
I wonder if there's a way to extrapolate from 18 to 19 to 19 to 20. I know it's,
Oh, CLA.
Try, but-
yeah, CLA.
I will be getting that number. I really expected it this week. I just haven't gotten it yet. That number usually comes out December 18th, 19th-ish. So that number I will have probably by Friday or tomorrow. It'll come in the mail tomorrow. It never fails.
Yeah.
Well, that can throw a wrench in things, that's all.
And the thing is, we have no control over the CLA. And
Right.
that really has no.
We don't, but we can't say, well, we expect our equalized pupils to go
Right.
up, so it's gonna paint a better picture than what you're seeing, because we don't know that, because we don't know what CLA is gonna do. It could take away everything that the equalized pupil count brings us. Probably won't, but,
I can't predict one way or another on that one.
yeah.
So Martha, even I still get confused. If the grand list goes up, then the CLA goes down, right?
No. The grand list goes up, your CLA goes up, because your property
You should pay
value is
more.
closer to what the state values it at.
Okay.
If your CLA goes up, your tax rate goes down.
And it also has to do with when you were
Gotcha.
last assessed, because
Right.
that reflects the accuracy of your grand list.
Right.
Yep.
So right now, with these estimated numbers in here, the tax rate looks fine, but, like I said,
Right, so I mean, I take pause at these tax rates only because
Yep.
I know that they're as good as you can get, but we're missing vital information, so I
Absolutely.
can't put a lot of confidence in them.
right.
However, I am very encouraged about, the 2.8%, and that we feel like will go down
Yeah.
because of the equalized pupil count. So
Right.
that's really encouraging.
Right, if our expense budget stays where it is right now.
Right, and also it looks like, we've pretty much absorbed all the teachers' raises by cutting positions, and I understand.
Yeah.
when looking
And
at-
health. Yeah, and health. Well, no, that's true.
No,
That's
that's
still up.
just salaries,
It's just salaries.
just salaries.
How much did health go up?
4 point something.
Overall, all employee benefits went up 4.2%. Health insurance went up, I want to say it's 10.8%. I want to say the premium increase was,
$10.
how many dollars?
Yeah, what was it?
11,169,653 is the benefits. Page 1, my cover sheet.
I think you wanted the difference, so is that the difference?
11,100.
11,169 over 10,713.
400,000, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Hold on.
Can you rewind back to that 500,000 of it?
Yes.
And explain again what
Okay.
that is?
So in prior years, the tech center is housed in the building, is housed in the BFA building. The tech center actually has its own budget, and it's a self-sustaining program. And so they basically contract services for operation and maintenance, central office services, transportation services, guidance services, health services, those areas. So in the past, what was done is the percentage that the tech center was showing in their expense budget as their cost would be reflected in the BFA budget in, like, say, in the health office, it would be a minus $16,500 to the health office expenses. And that's how that's reflected in the FY19 budget. So it would show the health office expenses less 16,000. So the net amount would be shown here. For FY19 working budget, that was adjusted. So if in those areas, if you see those areas, there's the health office, there's the office of the curriculum, there's library services, instruction-related technology, school board, office of the superintendent, fiscal services, human resource services, operation and maintenance, and student transportation. Those are the areas that the tech center would pay like an assessment for those services. Every one of those line items had a negative amount in the FY19 budget. So in the FY19 working budget, that was adjusted and the negative was taken out of there, and on the revenue sheet, on the top section, the third item from the bottom, it says services provided to Northwest Tech Center. That $500,000 was taken out of the expenses and put in the revenue side. So the expenses for FY20 will reflect at least a $500,000 increase in the expenses.
And the reason that was done
Is that's how the state was requiring that we reflect those costs.
But it's offsetting revenue, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the expense and the
Yes,
revenue cancel.
it's a net in the end, but when you're looking at just expenses,
Yes.
it looks as an increase.
Or if you look at just the bottom line of the budget,
Right.
then
But that's like 5%, right? Of the whole budget?
Yeah, it's a good chunk.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yes, because if you were to, I did a little calculation before coming and I netted it from the FY20 budget, where we're showing a 4.65%. If we were actually showing it apples to apples, we would actually be at a 3.71% increase. So it does make a difference. So that's why they want you to look at education spending dollars,
Sure.
which is the net in the end.
And this is a problem we have every year.
Every year.
You
Because
can
the
never
state
compare
is
2
always
years.
asking you to shift where you're
Yeah.
charging things and, yeah,
but the net's always the same.
yeah. But the net is always,
And that's,
it's the same. It's the net is the net.
and then minus what you spend.
Right, exactly.
It's still frustrating.
One thing I'd like to make sure everyone understands is, as you know, as part of Act 46, we're getting an incentive. 2 years ago, we got 10 cents. Last year, we got 8 cents. This next year, we get 6 cents.
Right.
While that's good news, because we're getting, the taxpayers are getting some additional incentive money for the next, for 5 years, on our budget, you can also look at it negatively and say, every year you got a 2-cent tax rate you got to make up for.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So what you see presently, and we all admit that we haven't got full numbers, is that we've made up that
2 cents. Yeah.
2 cents in the tax rate.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you. So this, where you put your tax impact together, the last page, that includes the 4 cent, or what are we, 6 cents this year? 6 cents.
Yep, it's number 8 on that little spreadsheet.
And it shows the difference over the last year, too.
So it is good news.
So we will be coming back at the first January meeting, bringing you more information. Hopefully we'll have more solid numbers at that point.
Next year.
Next year.
Sharp is bleeding in my vision.
Yes, there you go.
Need blinders.
Anything else? Any other questions for Martha?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 7B, which is the bond referendum, and that's attachment 7B.
This is the Martha Show.
So at the last board meeting, we had the PowerPoint presentation explained the different areas in the building that we are looking to address issues. And this month we have numbers for you to look at for the proposed project. Including the owner's contingency, we're estimating the project to be about $5.7 million. And this is just for the BFA project that was in the PowerPoint presentation at this point.
So the PowerPoint presentation is
Also
attachment
attached.
7B.
Yeah.
And
Make
it's the
sure
numbers,
it's attached to
the
the
numbers.
Pardon?
Next attachment?
Yeah. It looks like this.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I did a quick estimate on tax rate impact if we were to go to bond. I just used round numbers. I actually used FY19's tax calculations because it's the only year that I have all the final tax calculation numbers to use. So if we were to bond this project, I used a $6 million, which we wouldn't bond any more than what we would need. For a 30-year project, it would be roughly a tax rate impact of about 1.5 cents, which I've then given you scenarios of what that would look like depending on your homestead value, with the $100,000 being about $15 an annual increase to your tax bill, and all the way up to a $500,000 homestead value to about $75 annual increase to your tax bill for that project.
So this is across the entire district? This is not split up by municipalities?
No. This gets added, this amount would be in that tax rate that I used that last page. It would be the figure, it would be included in the equalized rate, the number 7 rate. It would be embedded in that number, and then it would be adjusted by the municipality by the CLA. So, but that would be included in the tax rate.
So on average, I don't know what the average home is, but say, if you look at $300,000, you're talking about less than $5 a month.
So the question really is this a project that we want to include language on the March ballot to authorize us to go out to bond for this project?
You guys think?
I think we need to. You know, like, I think it needs to be done, but I think that, it's easy to say about $5 a month, but, you know, I think a lot of homeowners are gonna be looking at another $50 a month or another $100. I mean, $50
a year?
Yeah, $50 a year, you know, on top of my school taxes, you know, so we're looking at another $100, and, you know, as you see your taxes, I don't think we can minimize $100 a year, year after year after year, to the average person.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would say, what I see in the project is a lot of maintenance. So that, if you defer it, it just,
Maintenance and
it's there.
safety issues, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's more money later, for
Yeah.
sure. No question. I think security also plays a big role.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of this, right? I apologize,
Yes.
I missed the presentation last.
Yes. If you get a moment to go through the PowerPoint presentation, it's very
I went through it
informative.
quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's no swimming pool for Chris in this.
No.
How much more would it be for a swimming pool for Chris?
That's a fine question. Maybe just a lap pool.
Maybe.
Yes,
Big
you can
tub.
go to Abishans and get one of
Big
those
tub.
plastic ones.
What do you think, Nina?
I think it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to be sooner than later. This is just going to go bankrupt. You just said that. Maybe it'll be hard to argue against it. Yeah. I think the security thing is the key.
As far as bonds go, it's not that big.
Right.
I realize it's, $50 a year.
And we don't want to have a special election for that, a special vote for that, because people don't like that, but they're expensive. I think we need to do it too. It kind of makes me nervous, but we do need to do it.
Yeah, it's always a little scary when you're asking
I wish we
for
could put
money.
it
You're
off,
asking people to put up
but-
more money, but it's our community's asset. We need to maintain it. Al, what are your thoughts? And that's $50 on a $300,000 home.
Right,
So-
and I just want to be clear, those are estimates that I'm using currently.
It's 1,000 feet.
Yeah,
It's not even, it's 44 something.
I think that from a safety standpoint, which to me includes security, it has to be at least presented.
Right.
I've had people come to me and say, what are you doing about the security at the high school? Do something and we'll pay for it. But
Like-
that's,
Yeah.
My question is, when it was presented, it talked about a connector, but also maybe additional classrooms
No.
or office space or,
The only thing that was in that connector was a small conference meeting room.
okay.
There were no added classroom spaces.
And added office space?
No.
No.
There was an original plan several years ago in which there was talk about something like that.
Yeah, we had multiple versions of that connector that came across our
Yes.
Chris's desk, and we jokingly called them, what was it?
It was well, there was no Cadillac.
There was no Cadillac plan. But
So it was a Chevy plan.
Yep.
Then there was the Pinto plan. And now we're on the golf cart plan.
Right. Which basically is just the connector.
you're really
Because there
dating
was,
yourself with the Pinto.
there was thoughts of making it a two-story with classroom
Last was the
space and, but
So,
it
no,
was,
I thought, it almost sounded from what they presented last time, there was gonna be some sort of central office that so when you walked in through that connector, there'd be someone greeting, or
yes,
some sort of.
yes, there will be a reception area. Yes, that is in the plan.
But that's not gonna be the main office.
No,
Okay.
it's gonna be more a reception
Will
area.
that be the main point of entry for students and teachers? Is that where people will come through? Or
It'll
will
be
they
the
still
main
come around?
entrance for visitors. They are gonna do the bus drop-offs at that main entrance. There will probably be some parent drop-offs and staff that may come in on the side entrances in the morning and afternoons, possibly. That's not completely
And
closed.
that would be basically for badged people.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm trying to
Right, it would be
understand how it
security
helps
badge.
security if all you're doing is getting rid of one entrance.
Yeah, no, we would,
But
those
everything-
entrances would be security badge entrances.
Didn't they say everything would be locked down after
Yeah.
drop-off time? And
Yes.
that would be the only way to
Right.
get in? Was that reading?
If I could, Martha, just curious, I drove a Pinto. And I'm just, if the Pinto represents a second floor corridor above this one, was it considerably more? Or I'm just thinking, if we're considering options, or maybe we're not at this point, but
It was considerably more.
considerably.
Well, and what I
It
would
was
say,
quite-
Steve,
What's that?
that he last mentioned this last time, the opportunity will be there should BFA expand, get more kids. It's being built in such a way that if we needed to expand, we could. But we're not at that point right now.
I'm just trying to imagine, because a lot of kids funneling through a corridor, and I imagine studies are done width and capacity every 45 minutes, whatever.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
It's gonna be-
that's all been addressed.
All right.
So what's left to do on this? Do you have to go back and do more work, or is this?
At this point, what we would do is we would be looking for approval to move forward by the taxpayers. Then once that happens, then we would put everything out to bid, we would get good numbers, then we would go to the bond.
I mean, I understand you want to put it on the ballot in town meeting day.
Right.
Is there anything left to do with what you have here? You've got all your numbers, this is the money.
This is what we would be presenting.
Are you asking us now to give it a thumbs up for town meeting day for the next election?
That would be what we would be looking for, either today's meeting or the January meeting.
Because when we approve the warning, it'll be on.
It'll be
the
on
line
there
item on there.
if that's what you want. So it would be nice to know whether it should be on there for the first draft or not.
So it sounds to me, and I'm not trying to speak for anybody, but it sounds to me like you have general support of the board on this. However, I think we should push it off a meeting in case anyone from the public wants to come in and give their feedback before we decide to move forward.
Absolutely.
Does that sound okay with you guys?
It does not need to be decided tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have one question. I know there's some questions last meeting on including other things in that bond, maybe additional. Is this just going to stick with BFA only?
Well, there was some conversation about the need for Fairfield with the common school issue. We don't have any numbers yet. We probably won't have any until mid-January on that piece. And we feel, the administration feels that we can probably manage that with our capital reserve funds.
Let's just strictly BFA. Okay.
At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good news for that. All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martha.
You just have to tell Chris maybe, and he's perfectly fine.
Get him a shower. Okay, new business brings us to 8A, which is policy C11, student freedom of expression. That's attachment 8A. And Kathy, is that you?
Yes, there were some questions that I think board members may want to discuss with regard to the policy. There was a typo that I think we fixed, but there were some questions about, Steve, that you asked if a student, would it apply to only student journalists? The answer to that is yes. This is about student voice on school-sponsored media. We do have an old policy that we had around advertising in schools, and it covers this. We basically use it as a procedure now, which basically says to post bulletins or to distribute commercial or political materials or for all fundraising activities for sales or solicitation on school premises, and for distribution of any informational materials is basically with the approval of the principal of the building. So it's separate from this.
Okay, so if you're not a student journalist and want to put up a post for upcoming whatever,
right,
even that has to get approval.
Correct.
So even at that point, then someone would look it over for content and how appropriate it is.
Right.
Okay, the other question I had was, if by chance a student who's a journalist working within the school submits something and it's asked to be edited or turned down outright, do they have or should they have a means of questioning that? In other words, in as much as some of this is kind of gray, like obscene.
Right.
And say the student wanted to submit an article and they used goddamn.
Well, the policy says if it's perceived by the person in charge of that school media to be offensive, then it does not
So there's no way of,
I don't know if the individual principals have any procedure they use for appeal or
if the student wanted-
review of materials.
right, if a student wanted to challenge the director telling them, no, we can't print this, and if the student might obviously ask why, and if they are given a reason, I mean, do students have any redress, I guess, or should they even have any?
Well, I think what you're speaking to, at least for us, is the culture of the school relative to expression. We were recognized a year or two ago for being very broad in allowing students to express their opinion. Peter Riegelman does a really good job in his work as the advisor to the Mercury to coach and teach the students as to what's acceptable. The culture of the schools that the kids very frequently will talk to school administration. They'll bring their tape recorders. They'll ask us if they have permission. So we're always on record. And we try to give them as thorough answers as possible. And generally, I think they've handled it extremely well. And if there are issues where somebody may be violating some of the tenets of that policy relative to slander or libel or gross disrespect, whatever the case may be, then usually we'll have a dialogue about it. But that does not happen that frequently. I think the kids, at least through the Mercury, have a good sense of pride around what they're doing. I think they're well coached, and generally it's not been problematic where I've had to say this is not acceptable. Generally it's gone through enough screening so that it comes out in a reasonable way. So I think the policy in some ways affirms culturally what we're doing.
Is VFA the only one that has any kind of student journalism or any of the other schools? Does this apply to any of the other schools?
Yeah, we're starting a student news video program, so it would apply to a certain level.
So the criteria may be a little different depending on.
For the most part, the teachers are on the front line with it, so they're really helping, like guiding the kids towards where to go and how to do stuff like this responsibly.
I think would it apply to the young writers workshop, that kind of stuff?
Not necessarily, because a lot of the young writers aren't necessarily, let's say, connected to the school.
Right.
They just submit, the kids submit independently directly to young writers.
School sponsored. The only issue I had, there's one word in it that bothers me, and that's line 25, the word only. It's like, it's only subject to these 6 conditions, but then you look at the condition, it's like, well, if it may be defined as obscene, or it may be defined as harassment, it's very focused on these 6, but then the 6 are broad. I can live with it. Is this from VSBN?
Yes, it is. And we added, the libelous or slanderous and the, there was also something.
Wasn't there an issue at some school in Vermont recently?
Yes.
That's what motivated
That's what motivated this.
So what are we looking for tonight?
First
reading or?
First reading.
Is there a vote on that? Or do we have to vote on it? To do the first reading?
Well, don't they want a motion to post it for adoption at the next?
Right.
Yeah.
We usually read it the first and then post it for adoption.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you, Nelda. Any more discussion? Okay, so all those in favor of posting this? Oh.
No, if it's unanimous, we have
Ultimately. Could I interrupt one more time? So I just want to be clear on this. Maybe I'm not, hopefully I'm not trying to micromanage. I'm just guessing. It sounds like we have good advisors, but if advisors come and go, if one down the road sees obscene as quite different from what the students see, do we not want to allow students a means of challenging it formally, or what is their redress if they have an advisor 5 years from now who takes a quite different view of what could be considered obscene? I mean, if the first paragraph, the policy talks wonderfully about freedom of expression, etc. If we're to honor that, do we want to offer students redress or a means of challenging? Or am I off on a limb here? I don't know.
It's an interesting question. Let's take this policy off the table and say, what if someone feels like any policy is not being followed? What's their redress? To come to the superintendent? It's chain of command, right?
Yeah.
So this would be no different than any others.
Right.
So you do have some redress.
So the students could follow a chain of command if they're
Teacher, principal, superintendent.
okay.
I think so.
Thank you. Yeah. Good enough.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of moving this for adoption at next meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7.5 to 0. Warrants. Look for a motion to approve the warrants. Thank you, Al. Is there a second? Thank you, Nina. Any discussion on the warrants? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Warrants approved, 7.5 to 0. Superintendent's report.
Two things for you tonight, folks. First, I just want to take the opportunity to say how much we will miss our retirees.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe not their fault.
I'm so embarrassed.
Was that the music for your happy dance?
Yes. Did you plan that?
I swear. Oh, look, I'm getting all red.
You know, we have now where we're looking at with Michelle, where we knew would be leaving, and now Kathy and Joanne. I just want to say that over the last 5 years, we've done a lot of transformation in this district, and it would never have been done without these three people. It's been so much work, and these people have been proactive and helpful and with the right vision and moved us forward. So I personally just want to say how much I will miss them. And I think they want to say a little something, so I'm going to give them the opportunity if they'd like to say.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay. I just thank you for that, and I just want to let folks know that it's certainly not about the job at all that I have given, and Sally knows this. We've been around a long time together. Pretty much 40 years of my work to this community for children and families in varying capacities, and now I have 4 grandchildren and 1 on the way, and they're scattered all over the United States, so I'm really feeling like it's time for my family. So thanks, and it's been great working for you all, and we're not done yet. It's not June. We'll be around a while.
I think it's been a very interesting job. It was, as you know, an encore career for me after being an education administrator for more than 30 years. And I think the whole consolidation process was an education in itself. And the difference between the year when we were working on putting everything together and getting to one contract and this year, it is amazing how much more time we had to spend on systems and processes and getting things moving in a great direction. I feel really good about the work I've done here. I feel great about the people I've worked with, and look forward to doing some traveling and enjoying my family. And I appreciate your support and the work that we've done together.
Can I just say one more thing? So this piece, I can't believe I didn't say it before. This is really important to me. So my entire career working with children and families has really been, since I came to education, trying to get educators to understand the importance of social emotional learning. And so I am absolutely thrilled that not only is this now on the radar, that it's actually on the 5-year plan. So I'm leaving here just feeling amazed about that and so excited. Thanks.
Thank you. The last part, going along with that, the unfortunate matter is it leaves us with a hole in central office that will be difficult to fill with these positions mission, but never impossible, because that's just never impossible. But I do want to tell the board that I want to take this opportunity. We've had a certain structure in central office for many, many years, way before my time. And I want to take this opportunity to look at the structure, see if it's best. Times have changed. Positions have changed. A lot of things in any organization, you probably all know this, being parts of organizations, sometimes job responsibilities get weirdly put into other places because somebody happens to have the skill for it. I'm working with the administrative staff on all of this right now, in addition to the 5-year plan, where we know that we're looking at centralizing. We have other things on our plate relative to centralizing of operations and other things. And how can we do that? And attrition is your friend, so we are going to be looking through that. And I will be coming with you sometime in January on this, because we need to move on moving forward.
You read something.
I just wanted to say your maturity and wisdom, and they sound kind of like very lofty words, but they're so applicable. That will be missed so much.
Joan?
So you have my report. Are there any questions, like in any of the things that I shared with you about what's been going on?
It's great to read, that's for sure. And kind of related to that, you know, when I was watching that presentation that the kids did, all the comments, I mean, there was teachers from all over the country, and they were just amazed at the kind of things that are going on here.
That was kind of what we got from both presentations when we were in DC and then when we were online for the webinar. People are just like, are there really public schools that are allowing kids to do stuff like this?
Yeah.
Which was a nice thing.
They definitely seemed jealous.
It's good.
Anything else?
When will doggy bowls be available again?
We're out of blood, sorry.
They sold out in a day.
Oh my.
And they had like 10 of them.
Oh.
So it was amazing.
They do it different heights too?
They do different heights based on the height of your dog. So
What do you do with yours?
First drop.
Yeah.
But yes, they're going to be coming out again. And
I will be in touch.
it was nice thing for the kids to sell out so
I
quick.
do not.
Okay.
All's good.
Angela? Anything?
Sure. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things. One, Last Wednesday, the students in our 6th grade CHAMP community had a culminating event where they presented and shared research that they did on the history of St. Albans. They started, they read a book about a young boy who found the wonders in his community, and so their teacher asked them to do the same, and so it was called the 7 Wonders of St. Albans. So they had to each choose 7, research it, write about it, present it. They all had poster boards, projects, and so it was a really nice event that we had at the school. It was excellent. And this time of year, our school is focused quite a bit on community service. We were big in Operation Happiness. We have a diaper drive. We help with the BFA coat drive. And one big event that we held this afternoon at the school, we called it our service event, and it was the entire school in the gym for an assembly. It was to honor Officer Roger Langevin for his service to our school. And it was quite touching. The students gave speeches, a parent spoke, and it was a really wonderful event for the students to see the impact that one person can make by their efforts and being positive and caring, making kids feel good about coming to school. So it was very nice. There were children crying because, poor Roger, but knowing that he is going on to a really important role as a sheriff in Franklin County. So it's interesting with the publicity of seeing who won the sheriff's race, the impact at a really, school level on someone who has made just a great impact on our entire school community. So it was about service and doing important things for others. So those were my highlights.
Thank you. Jason, anything to add?
Nothing to add this week.
Before we go on, just like to mention also, today, 3rd graders from St. Albans Town came and gave a holiday concert for all of us here at the rehab center. And they were 3rd graders, and their teacher had instructed them very well. They were versed in every verse they knew, and they really tickled the hearts of a lot of people up here. So I want to
another example of service.
Great. All right, Al, thank you for sharing that with us. Sean?
This time of year, there's so much going on. We have our concerts and our funny dress down days and just everything. We're giving cookies to the Fairfield Community Center and delivering milk as part of a fundraiser. But, working in the schools right now is really hard at this time of year. When I was in school, it was because I was excited about Christmas and I couldn't wait to see my presents and I couldn't wait for what was going to come into play in the snow and all that good stuff. And for some of our kids, that's still true. And that, that made me a little distracted. But a lot of our students are distracted for very different reasons in our schools right now. They're distracted because if they're impacted by the opioid crisis, they might be sitting for a week and a half on a couch looking at grandma who took her pills because her back is hurt, and the kid might not get a meal for a week and a half because the good meal that they get is with us at school. And they're stressed out about vacation coming. They're not really excited as many of us were or are. And so, all the good things that are happening in schools right now are wonderful, but I just want to, just take a minute and recall that this is a really tough time for a lot of kids, and they are struggling every single day in our buildings. And as we do our happy things and our fun activities, for some of them that's as good as it's going to get for the holidays. So keep them in mind as we go off to vacation. That's powerful.
The last couple of weeks at Collins Curley campus has been largely about the new sports season for our athletes. We've begun a lot of new units in physical education that have been excellent. We've also had 2 major community events, one side of a funeral, but also as an opportunity to be a celebration of life. And the next day we turned over the room for craft show, which is a great community event, both for the people who exhibit to make money from it, and are able to move forward with their crafts, and also for the community, both from the standpoint of an opportunity to make purchases and see what's new, but also it's a great opportunity for people to interact with each other. A great community event. Crafter numbers about doubled in the last 3 years due to the 3 steps that Chris LeBlanc put for us. So things have gone very well.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to echo what Sean said. We also are experiencing that at the tech center, and I'm sure Chris can account for that as well. But we also participated in Operation Happiness, so we had several programs that were unpacking trucks and packing boxes for families to come pick up for their holiday meal. And we also have our automotive program that goes over to the St. Albans City Library, and they choose tags off of the tree for children that need gifts, and so they do services on automobiles for usually teachers and students, and they accept donations for the labor, and then that money is used to purchase the presents, and then they bring those over to Operation Happiness and also the city library. So that's I feel good. We are partnered with Harley Davidson in Essex Junction. There is a national competition called Battle of the Kings, and 20 countries are participating in building a custom Harley, and the Green Mountain Harley Davidson dealer selected Northwest Technical Center to participate with them of all the technical centers that they could choose from. Essex, Burlington, Lamoille, they chose Northwest Technical Center. So our students are going to help design this custom bike along with the folks at Harley Davidson. And we had it at our center for the last week and a half or so. It was like a stripped down version of a Harley. And so the students got to look at it. Our digital video production program came in and videotaped it. And we'll be documenting that along the way. So that's pretty cool.
So you were jealous, weren't you?
I was very jealous. As a matter of fact, they said, we could make it for you, Miss Red, if you want. I'm like, well, that's out of my price league. And then we're right in the smack dab middle of outreach season. So January 15th is our preferred deadline. So we do a lot of our outreach to our local 8th graders and 9th and 10th graders currently now. And as you know, we hired Dino Pasturas, who is a BFA alumni, as our outreach coordinator, and he has been doing fabulous work, and you can expect to see Northwest Tech Center's outreach video at the Weldon Theater this Saturday for the next 3 months. So if you go catch a show, you'll see our advertisement there. Thank you.
Like to add anything, Lisa?
Just to let everybody know that in the midst of all the students being very busy, that we still have an increase of high school students coming to me saying, I want to take more coursework. They're registering for LNA and welding and medical assisting, and it's just amazing that they're continuing to ask for it, and they're taking that on and taking classes at night and on weekends.
I really appreciate what everybody said about holiday season, the joy, and also the need to continue to reach out and be aware of how our students are doing and checking in. I'm grateful because we've got some really good counselors and a staff that is always aware, even though we had a nice little celebration this week. We did want to just make sure that everybody stayed focused and vigilant, because we want to make sure that our kids' social and emotional health is always at the forefront. Academics are critical in high school, but we also want to try to make sure, especially during these times when we know that some kids are struggling, that we're reaching out. So when our students participated in the coat drive that was featured on the front page of the Messenger, I was very pleased. I know Stephanie Hodgman worked real hard to make that happen. I had a chance to go into the closet, there was something like 500 coats. And it was just a really nice thing, for our students to be able to support others in need, and that was great. And we also had students going about with Armand singing in the community, and got some nice feedback from that. And we did celebrate our holiday concert on Monday, as well as for the entire community on Sunday. And I'm very proud of the way our arts program is really coming together, and you know, it's diverse in that we have dance and we have drama, and the kids had a chance to present for the musical. We had the chorus, we had the band and orchestra, so just some really strong and talented students that deserve recognition. And most importantly, as principal, it's just nice to be able to watch that, not only the performance, but our kids appreciating what their peers are doing and enjoying the music, and that's also part of their learning as well. The audience can't be the show, and just try to understand what's happening and enjoy that and grow a little bit culturally. So that was really a highlight for me.
Heather, anything to add?
Shannon, but yes.
Shannon, excuse me.
Yes, I've been waiting anxiously over here. I had an 11th grade student, Riley Gamache, approach me about 2 weeks ago. She is part of A World of Difference and really wanted to do a toy drive, and this was on the heels of the coat drive and the Operation Happiness. And I said yes, and I gave her some ideas of where the boxes should be so that they were near cameras and offices so that they could be watched. And I said some ideas if she were only to get a couple of gifts, or if people wanted to give money, you know, that a lot of churches and local areas will have, you know, little ornaments with a student name, you know, or name of a child in the area that you could pick, that if she were only to get a couple of gifts. The boxes have been filling. She's actually been emptying the boxes, so that's been really great to see. Check, I've got a couple more. We administered the writing prompt to our freshmen, which was the first time for the high school, and it was the neatest thing to walk around and watch 200 ninth grade students typing away, writing to their heart's content for over 80 minutes, and some kids asking for more time. It was really great to see. So those will be getting assessed on January 2nd, so I can't wait to see the results. Check. I've been getting out and spending a lot of time with our advisories who are working on their PLPs, and for the first time we're working in the same system that all the schools are using, and it is so much better, and the kids love it, and the teachers love it, and I love it. So I'm not going in and saying you need to click here and you need to click here. I'm actually getting to sit down and have conversations with kids about their PLPs and what they're learning and what they're struggling with and what to reflect on, and so that's been really, really valuable to me. So check. Two more. We have really been focusing on social emotional learning, and part of that restorative practices, and that's something that we're doing district-wide. And we felt as an administrative team that we really needed to model that with our faculty and staff. And our faculty and staff really wanted practice and time and exposure with that. So we've been doing that in our leadership team meetings and with faculty meetings. We did one with our faculty yesterday, and I think the timing was just right with everything that has happened, and try to keep it as a lighter meeting. And I tried to keep some of the prompts a little bit lighter, but some of the circles got really deep and emotional, and people really leaned into them. And I was still getting emails and comments today about how people really appreciated the time to do that, and that they are starting to feel more comfortable to do that, and thinking about dipping the toe in the water with doing that with kids now that they have had that experience. And this one is a personal success, but this is a success to all of my colleagues who have sort of coached me and helped me, and to the system as a whole. I've been working with a specific student. I actually was late to a meeting with Chris and the admin team today around truancy, which is something that we all struggle with, kids with truancy. And this young lady missed a significant amount of time this semester and had some very, very painful meetings with the parents about why she wasn't coming to school, and how to get her to school, and then how to get her caught up once she came to school. And we had a meeting this afternoon, and she's getting caught up, and I check in with her, and before the meeting started, I got an email from the dad, and I just want to read you this one quote because I'm just like melting. The daughter let the dad go to her counseling meeting, and the daughter said to her counselor, her father, in reference to me, "She listens and she tells me the truth no matter what, and I never have to second guess that she believes in who I am and that I can do it." And that's why we're here, and I just love the job, and I love being here. So, okay, now I'm done. Check.
Okay, next meeting, what do we got? Budget?
Budget.
Got policy.
The 11.
So you said it's the second one where we'll do the warning.
Yes, we'll probably bring a draft at the next meeting if we have better numbers, although there is a holiday in between there and I am taking some vacation time. So it will more than likely be the second meeting in January when we finalize those things.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for future meetings? All right, just a note, we have some terms expiring this year. Mike, myself, Nina, Sally. And I'll let you know that I do not plan to run for re-election. I think this district is in a great place. It's got a lot of momentum, and I think it's just a good time for me to walk off into the sunset. So, like many of you, moving forward.
We didn't approve it.
So, with that being said, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Al.
Bye, Al.
So now, she says,
Now you need to turn around.